Hey mom, how's it going?
I'm having a good day, Lindsay. How's your day going?
It's going good. I had a really funny moment today when I was pretending to be the CEO of wedding planning today instead of working, and then remembered that you were in my wedding planning group chat as my boss. That was
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
crazy moment today,
I
but I
saw
got a lot
that.
of wedding planning done.
I did see that. I saw a lot of WhatsApp going back and forth with Miss Charlotte in France. It looks like you guys accomplished a lot. That was amazing.
Sometimes you gotta go when the inspiration strikes and when the French person is responding to you. You know what I
No
mean?
kidding. Yeah, I mean that time zone is a thing. I will tell you this: I'm super excited about um, the painting. So I saw that that came through. So that's going to be a cool, I don't know, souvenir or whatever that people will keep because I love the one that I have in my office.
Yeah, we're doing like little guest paintings of all of our guests. They can get like a live painting of themselves. I feel like a lot of couples these days are moving towards getting a painting of themselves, but I don't know. Like, I like attention, but I don't like attention like that, you know? Like, I'd rather have my guest have a little knickknack to take home that's really, special to them than have a painting of myself. I can always get a painting of one of my favorite pictures or something done later. So I'm super pumped about that too. Yay. I'm glad you saw that. But sorry for, not really working for like an hour today.
Someone texted me today and they're like, how many days until the big day? And I started to count and I'm like, ooh, this is making me nervous. I don't really want to know that number. Do you know the number?
You know what? That's actually really funny because when we were in North Carolina, Andy, who was with us, was asking me every single day how many days until the wedding, and I was getting really stressed out because I had like a lot to do, but I'd been traveling, and someone named Andy friended me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I want to connect. If you're open to it, thanks." And I thought that they looked alike. So without really digging that deep into it, I said, "Andy, how are you? 49 days until the wedding, in case you're wondering." And he responded, "OMG, you're getting married?" This was last week. I forgot to tell you about it.
Oh, that's funny. I wonder who that Andy is. That's hilarious.
He seems like a nice guy. He does like a lot of sales training and stuff, but I responded, I'm like, "Oh my god, Andy, that message probably seemed like really out of left field. I'm so sorry. I am getting married. I had you confused with a different Andy. So Andy, if you're listening, I'm really
Oh,
sorry."
that's funny stuff. I love it. That's hilarious. Oh my
Nothing like
goodness.
building relationships based off of your wedding.
He'll probably remember you, I'm guessing. Crazy. That's a real different
Oh
intro.
my god,
49
yeah.
days. Woo!
OMG, you're getting married? Oh my god. So it's probably something like 42 days because that was last week. So we're getting close.
There
Getting
you go.
close.
I'll go answer my text and then I'll panic that there's actually 42 days until we're doing this. We're going to
I
do
know.
this.
It's getting really close. Okay, so instead of talking about wedding planning this entire podcast, which I'm sure some of our listeners would actually like, what I wanted to chat about today in my like solo episode, hey, we talked about this at some point during the week and I actually don't know enough about it, so let's make a podcast about it where Lindsay learns. Welcome to Lindsay's classroom. Well, really Carey's classroom for Lindsay. I wanted to talk about concentration risk. So at Agency Focus, we use a 4 bucket system for risks that I understand. One of the largest buckets is concentration. And by largest, in my mind, that means it has the most bullet points under it. I don't know if you would consider that also the technicality for largest.
Oh my
But
goodness.
in my mind, there's a lot of factors that go into concentration risk.
There are.
So, why don't you open it up with just what is concentration risk and like how do we define it?
Yeah. For those of you that don't have any idea what risk we're talking about, agency focus values agency. We do a lot of agency valuations, probably roughly around 200 a year. And um, in order to do a valuation, we value the agency based on a multiple of EBITDA. So we go through the financials, we come up with your pro forma operating profitability or EBITDA, and then we look at all these risk factors to apply the multiple that makes sense to that EBITDA to get to the valuation of the agency. So one of the biggest, there's actually three categories of risk, and one is concentration, one is performance, and one is culture. We're going to talk about concentration risk. It's actually the easiest to understand. So there's a couple different categories under concentration. The first one, if you think about it from the top, is what is the concentration of the book of business? Is it personal lines heavy? Is it commercial lines heavy? And if it is, does that create risk inside the agency? So what's funny is a lot of people, I believe, think that they want more commercial than personal in their book of business for whatever reason. What's crazy is of the last, I have several CFO clients that we work with. Some of the most profitable agencies I have are heavy personal lines. So each of these risk factors you have to think of build on each other. So maybe there's a performance and a concentration, and it combined either strengthens the agency or weakens the agency. So an agency that is 50-50 concentration could struggle to know what technology to adopt in order to create efficiency inside the agency. They might struggle to know what expectations to place on their staff if they're trying to straddle personal lines and commercial lines in the same day, or if they have a salesperson that does everything, like really tough to know what capacity your staff should be at. So the mix of your business can create risk or inefficiency inside your agency. Another part of that is if it's personal lines heavy, you could make less commission depending on where you are in the country and which carriers you write with than an agency that writes the same premium volume, but all commercial or all small commercial. So that is one factor, but in and of itself, it could be good or bad, believe it or not, inside an agency. The next is there a niche? Like, do you concentrate in one line of business? Again, same concept. You could have a niche or a niche. What the people say that, I don't know if maybe I've moved around enough that I call it a niche, but whatever. That could create incredible efficiencies and profitability inside your agency. It could allow you to have an exclusive right to a program in order to write an agency. But on the flip side, if it's exclusive enough, it might be difficult to transfer to another agency owner that may not have same expertise, may not be able to gain the same relationships as you. So while it's great for your performance, it can also create some hurdles depending on who the buyers would be. There's always a buyer, don't get me wrong, but a niche can go both ways. It also could be really great that you have a strong niche in restaurants, but that would have been a really terrible niche to have as COVID started. So while it could be really efficient and really profitable, you've got great carriers for it. You've got all the right, your team knows exactly how to write it. Those are all pluses, but then something changes in the environment and regulation or whatever in that industry that causes it to be risky. So concentration by book, concentration by niche. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about concentration by producer. So I'm going to change to like the human side of this. We all know we're in a relationship driven business. So if an agency looks at the performance of the agency and all new business is coming from one producer that's at retirement age, we got Houston, we might have a problem, right? So you have to dig deep enough to know if that is a challenge for inside the agency, because if I buy that agency, I want to know that new business and the growth of that agency is predicted to continue. Well, if that producer doesn't continue, or that producer is at retirement age and that book is managed by account managers that are also at retirement age, we're going to have a gap in knowledge to hold on to a pretty significant portion of the book. And that is risky. Let's say I'm the producer on the book, but you're the account manager, Lindsay, and we both have the last name. We both are well known inside that book. When I retire, it's less likely that many people are going to exit because they already know you, and you're not the same age as me. You're going to be there for hopefully 20 years past when I'm going to be there. depth inside something could mitigate the risk, even if I hold a large a book. If I have account managers that have depth and also have relationships, it mitigates that risk. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. I think the confusing part about what you said is that all of these risks stack on top of each other.
Yeah. So think about it this way, because concentration of risk can come in many ways. So it's the mix of the book, it's whether or not there's a niche, it's concentration by carrier, concentration by producer, concentration by owner, concentration by line of business.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just paint a little picture. Let's say I'm the agency owner and I happen to specialize in charter schools. I have a designation for it. I love to write charter schools. I've been doing it for 20 years. 40% of our book is charter schools. Okay. And that happens to be really something that two of our carriers love. So there are two largest carriers. I have the relationship with those underwriters because I've been placing nice size accounts with them. So do you see how the largest carrier is dependent on my niche? It's dependent on me. I'm going to retire. If I don't show up to work tomorrow, it's a huge impact on the agency, when by comparison, I can be the only owner, but I have four producers under me that all represent 25% of the book. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have any of the book anymore. Each one of them has their own niche or two niches. So each of their niches don't make up more than 15% of the book. And it's spread across five carriers rather than two. Like, see how that's different than if it's me, I'm old, I have all the relationships, I have the knowledge, and it's all going to walk out the door at the same time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So if someone realizes that they are concentrated in a certain area, for example, the example you just gave with no niche should represent more than 15% of your book, what do they do about it?
Yeah. So I think same thing with carrier concentration. Like the rule of thumb with a carrier is no more than 25% of your book with any one carrier. And honestly, Lindsay, when I first started valuing agencies, I would say that to some people and they would laugh and say, that's ridiculous. It's so easy to do business with this carrier. We absolutely love them. It's how I maximize my contingencies. That's a dumb rule. And then the hard market hit and they realized that, when a carrier changes its compensation structure or its contingency structure or just stops writing new business, that impacted a large portion of their agency, where other agencies that were less risky or more diversified, the impact on their agency was far less than someone that's that concentrated. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem like a problem until it is. And so it doesn't seem like as severe as a problem based on the conditions of the market. So if I were to realize that I had a concentration in one carrier, typically you want to have three strong lead carriers that make up 20% of your book, 18% of your book, 15% of your book. So you can maximize contingencies, you can build relationships. And then let's say you have your fourth or fifth, you should look at those carriers and say, what's their appetite? What's the book look like that we write with them? What's really easy that they really like, and maybe put some marketing around that to start building the next one. Don't stop what you're doing in the other, but be strategic about what you try to attract to the agency based on who you want that next partner carrier to be. That's one of the strategies. If it's a book that is, a producer book, introduce multiple people into that book, or don't pair people up one to one. Put a producer with multiple account managers. So any one of those leave, there's some cross training available for that person to have the knowledge. I had one agency that had three owners. One was going to exit and his book made up 40% of the agency. And he had one account manager that was also going to retire at the same time, which meant they were going to leave this huge void in a pretty specialized book of business that nobody else really had any interaction with, which, I mean, some little bit, but the bulk of the work was these two people and they were both in the same age category. So some of the things is just looking at it. rather than working in your business, pick your head up and look and say, wait, where's my exposure here? Where could I cross train? Where could I reshuffle? Where could I have someone mentor another person over a period of time? And it's hard in a small business to overstaff and do that, but it's really beneficial when you have depth of knowledge and you're able to expand that. I also think this is a perfect opportunity for utilizing AI, where
Mm.
you can create knowledge about that specialization that you have inside your agency. So new people that don't have the experience would be able to go ask questions and be able to come up to speed and learn from those that might be exiting in order to be able to manage that book. You're not going to have the relationships with the customers, but you can gain the knowledge much faster with the resources that are available. So I think that's a incredibly smart thing to do, as we know there's a lot of knowledge that's going to exit the industry as so many people are at retirement age. But hopefully that helped with what do you do when you recognize some of this concentration risk.
So that's kind of what you do, but what are some strategies? You said the AI, you said diversify roles within your team. Those all seem pretty long term. Are there any short term, like easy wins that you've seen agencies take for any risk, or it is just like long term strategy that they have to work
It's one of
with?
the reasons we tell you to get a valuation done of your agency far in advance of you wanting to do something.
Mm.
So oftentimes when an agency comes to us and they say, we do our intro call and we just ask them about their agency. Number one, what do how can we help you? I'm interested in a valuation. Fantastic. Tell me about your agency. They typically start with, what's your revenue size? What's your mix of business? Are you personal lines heavy or commercial lines heavy? Tell me who your lead carrier is. Do you have any niches? What's your staff look like? And then they send us their data. We take notes on that intake call. And what's funny is people will say, oh, I'm 60-40 personal lines. And they come back and they're 70-30, or they're the opposite way. They're actually 40-60 the other way. But in their mind, they've always been 60-40, and they don't really look at the mix of business and they don't know that it's shifted. Or I'll say, what's your largest account? What do you have any idea how much is with your largest account? They've never really looked at what the revenue size is of their largest account in comparison to the whole book. The whole book is growing, and they didn't realize that their largest account makes up 15% of their book of business. Like, that's a serious concentration. If one account exits and it's 15% of your book, 20% of your book, that's a big deal. So some of these are just an awareness, and then thinking about how do you introduce and have that client that's so important to your agency maybe know multiple people inside the agency, or get to know the next future owner. But you could restructure how you deal with your carriers, how you deal with your customers, how you manage that niche and really cross train so you can spread that knowledge out a bit. Relationships are the hardest part, Lindsay, because it's so easy to just fall into, well, this is my client and I've known them forever. But the problem is that client could be not transferable if you don't try and introduce and transfer some of that trust to the entire team, not just the person they've known for 30 years. So I think you just have to be intentional about acknowledging this is a team approach, not a one-to-one approach.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Any other crazy, like, aha moments that you've seen with concentration? Obviously, without, spilling an agency name or
Yeah, so I
identifying
didn't
things like
touch
that.
on owner, but obviously one owner is the highest risk, and if something happens to them, but it
Yeah.
matters what that owner does. So if that owner has delegated a lot of their work and basically worked themselves out of a job, that's less risky than an owner that is still selling, still does all the operations, is the person who does all the payroll and the commissions. Like, that is tough to replace that role. But what's funny is sometimes there's a husband wife, and you think there's two people. I know what they do, and maybe they don't do everything, but they have an awareness, ability to log in, but they travel together. Like, do you know that's actually almost as risky as having one person? Because if something happens to you, it could happen to both of you.
It's like the president and the vice president can't travel together.
Yeah, it was really funny. So I had a husband wife basically joke and say, we take different cars or we are on different flights or whatever. I'm like, yeah, sure you do. But I think that's true in any business. Sometimes leadership teams all travel together and don't really realize that if something happened to that entire car full of people or plane full of people, what happens next? Like, how does that company continue? You've just taken all or a handful of the key people out of the mix. So it's funny when they have a realization and they think that they're going to change their travel schedule so they're not together, which is kind of
You need
funny.
Air
But
Force 1 and 2 in your agency.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so funny.
So funny. All right. Well, that was, I feel much better on concentration. So, concentration 101, I think, has been complete.
Cool.
Do you think
I
any
do.
other parting thoughts?
I think that's it. I think that's a pretty nice overview of the risk inside your agency, concentration.
Cool. Well, we will be back soon, I'm sure, with Lindsay needs to understand agency focus and how to help our clients. Back for a future edition. See you then.